Hello students, today I am going to start a new chapter of English literature. Students, in every school, so many races and competitions are held every year. Have you ever participated in any race or competition? What do we do before that race or competition? We do so much hard work because our only motto is to win that race. And what were the feelings of that person who won the race and the person who lost it? So, these all things we will discuss today in our English literature chapter, and your chapter name is The Big Race. Okay, now I'm going to start the chapter. I was awakened by a sound of a hornbill. Hornbill is a bird which is having curved beak. So, Hornbill was honking in the banyan tree. I lay in bed. The narrator was on the bed at that time, looking through the open window as the early morning sunshine crept up the wall. The narrator was looking out of the window because the sunshine was reaching on his wall. Crept up is this second form. Its first form is creep up. It is a phrasal verb and its meaning is reach. I knew it was a holiday and that there was something important to be done that day. That was a holiday and something important was there to be held on that day. But for some time, I couldn't quite remember what was it. But as the narrator was still feeling so sleepy, so the narrator was not able to remember what important thing was about to held on that day. Then, as the room got brighter and the hornbill stopped his noise, I remembered. But after some time, it struck in his mind that it was the day of the big race, that on that day a big race was about to held. I leapt out of bed. Leapt is second form of leap. It is a verb and its meaning is jump. So I leapt out of bed means I jumped out of my bed, pulled open a dressing table drawer. The narrator had opened a dressing table drawer and brought out a cardboard box. There was a cardboard box. So narrator brought out that box and in that box there was little holes. I opened the lid to see if Maharani was alright. Now who is Maharani? Maharani, my bamboo beetle. Maharani was a bamboo beetle. Beetle is an insect. Beetle meaning is insect. So inside that box there was Maharani. Maharani was a bamboo beetle. Was asleep on the core of an apple. There was an apple inside that box. So Maharani was sleeping on the core of that apple. I had given her a week's rigorous training for the monsoon beetle race. Now what is the meaning of rigorous? Rigorous means tough. It is an adjective. So the narrator had given a rigorous, a very tough training to Maharani for that monsoon beetle race, which was about to held on that day. So, and she was enjoying a well-earned rest before the big event. What is the meaning of well-earned? Well-earned means it is an adjective and its meaning is fully deserved. So after that tough training, now Maharani was taking a fully deserved rest because she is about to appear in that big race. I did not disturb her. The narrator didn't disturb her. Closing the box, I crept out of the house by the back door. Now, the narrator had closed the box and he had gone out of the house, but by the back door. Why he had gone out of the house by the back door? Because I didn't want my parents to see me sneaking off to the municipal park at the early hour, because he didn't want that his parents see him that he is going outside of the house at that early time. When I reached the gardens, the early morning sun was just beginning to make emeralds of the dewdrops, and the grass was cool and springing to my bare feet. When the narrator reached the garden, at that time dewdrops were there on the leaves and on the grass, and the grass was very cool and it was springing me elastic in nature. So at that time the grass was very cool and very elastic. To my bare feet, bare means uncovered. Bare is an adjective. A group of boys had gathered in a corner of the gardens. There were few boys in a corner of the garden, and among them were Kamal and Anil. Anil's black rhino beetle was the favorite. Anil was having a black rhino beetle, and which was favorite of all of them. It was a big beetle with an aggressive forehead rather like its owners. The beetle was having a very aggressive forehead. This is your forehead. So the beetle was very aggressive in nature like his owner Anil. It was called Black Prince. What was the name of Anil's beetle? Its name was Black Prince. Kamal's beetle was quite ordinary in size, but it possessed a long pair of whiskers. What is the meaning of whiskers? Whiskers means mustache. So Kamal's beetle was very ordinary in size. It was not very big, but it was having a long pair of mustache. Now what the narrator is telling about that Kamal's beetle, that I suspected it belonged to the cockroach family rather than the beetle family. Now the narrator is saying that he suspected that the beetle of Kamal was belonged to cockroach family and was called Moocha, which is Hindi for mustache. What was the name of Kamal's beetle? Its name was Moocha. There were one or two other entries, some more entries were there, but none of them looked promising, and interest centered on Black Prince, Moocha and my own Maharani. But the other boys were not so much interested in that beetles, Black Prince, Moocha and Maharani, who was still asleep on her apple core. Maharani was still sleeping in that apple core. A few bets were being made. The boys had gone through a bet in coins or marbles, and a prize for the winner was on display. Now what was the prize? The prize was a big size beetle, with the help of which the winner would be able to start a beetle race on a large scale. There was some confusion when Kamal's Moocha escaped from his box and took a preliminary canter over the grass. When the race was about to start, Mucha had hidden inside the grass, but he was soon caught and returned to his paddock. But the boys had caught the Mucha, and now the Mucha is back to his paddock. Paddock means field. The area where the race is about to held. Mucha appeared to be in good form, and several boys put their marbles on him. The course was about 6 feet long. Where the race is about to head, that court was 6 feet long. The tracks 6 inches wide. The tracks were fenced with strips of cardboard so that the contestants would not move over to each other's path or leave the course altogether. The tracks were fenced with strips of cardboard so that the contestants would not move over to each other's path or leave the course altogether. Now the tracks where the race is about to held, that was fenced with the strip so that the contestants would not be able to disturb each other. They could only go forward or backward. They couldn't go inside the court, inside the track of any other's beetle. They were held at the starting point by the another piece of cardboard which would be placed behind them as soon as the race began. There was one another cardboard before them, and that cardboard would be placed behind them as soon the race began. A little sick boy in a yellow pajama suit was acting as starter, and he kept blowing his whistle for order and attention. One sick boy was there who was in yellow pajama suit. He was giving all the instruction by blowing his whistle. Eventually, he gained enough silence in which to announce the rules of the race. Now, finally, eventually means, students, it is an adverb and its meaning is finally. So, after some time, finally, he got silence so that he can announce the rules and regulations of the race. The contesting beetles were not to be touched during the race. Now, what were the rules? Rules were that the contesting beetles were not to be touched during the race. The beetles could not touch each other or blown at from behind. No one can blow them behind or bribed forward with bits of food, and no one can give them bribe with bits of food. Only moral assistance was allowed in the form of cheering and advice. The viewers can only motivate them by cheering and by advising. Mucha and Black Prince were already at the starting point, but Maharani seemed unwilling to leave her apple core. When the race was about to start at that time, Mucha and Black Prince were there at the starting point, but at that time Maharani was not interested to participate in the race and she was still in her apple core. Unwilling means, unwilling, it is an adjective and its meaning is not interested. And I had to drag her to the starting post. So the narrator had dragged Maharani to the starting point. Now after this, Mucha got his whiskers entangled in the legs of a rival. When narrator had dragged Maharani to the starting point, after this, Mucha had got his whiskers entangled in the legs of a rival, in the legs of the another contestant. But they soon separated and the beetles placed in separate lanes. Now after separating the whiskers of Mucha, all the beetles were placed in separate lanes. The race was about to start. Kamal sat on his haunches, very quiet and serious, looking from Mucha to the finishing line and back again. Now, at that time, Kamal sat on his haunches. Haunches means top part of the leg. So at that time Kamal was sitting on his haunches. He was very quiet, he was very calm and serious, and he was only observing Mucha. I was biting my nails, the narrator was telling about himself. Anil's bushy eyebrows were bunched together in a scowl. Now Anil, who was having bushy eyebrows, he was looking in an angry mood. There was a tense hush amongst the spectators. Now, all the spectators, spectator is a noun and its meaning is viewers. And hush is also a noun and its meaning is silence. Now, at that time, there was a silence tension in the viewers. Peep went the whistle. The sick boy blown the whistle and they were off. Or rather, Mucha and Black Prince were off because Maharani was still at that starting post. As the whistle was blown, Mucha and Black Prince were off. Mucha and Black Prince had started the race, but Maharani was still at the starting point, wondering what happened to her apple core. Now she was wondering that what happened, where is the apple core? Everyone was cheering madly. Anil jumping about and Kamal shouting himself hoarse. Now at that time everyone was cheering that all the beetles. Anil was jumping and Kamal was shouting himself. Hoarse is an adjective and its meaning is rough and harsh. So at that time, Kamal was shouting very roughly, very harshly. Mucha was going at a spanking rate. Mucha was going spanking rate means it is also an adjective. Spanking rate means very fast. So Mucha was going very fast. Black Prince really wasn't taking much interest in the proceedings. At that time, Black Prince was not so much interested, but at least he was moving and everything could happen in a race of this nature. Narrator was saying that at least Black Prince was taking a little bit interest in the race, but Maharani was not interested in that race. I was in furious temper. At that time, he was in so much tension. All the coaching that I had given Maharani appeared to be of no use. At that time, the narrator was thinking that how much tough training I had given to Maharani, but now it is of no use. She was still looking confused and a little resentful at having been deprived of her apple. She was still looking confused and a little resentful at having been deprived of her apple. Now at that time, Maharani was still very confused and a little resentful. Resentful is an adjective and its meaning is irritated. So Maharani was very irritated at that time because of being deprived of her apple. Then Mucha suddenly stopped about 2 feet from the finishing line. He seemed to be having trouble with his whiskers. and kept twitching them this way and that. When Mucha was about to reach the final point, before that, approx 2 feet about from that finishing point, Mucha stopped because Mucha was having problem with his whiskers. Black Prince was catching up inch by inch, and both Anil and Kamal were hopping about with excitement. At that time, Black Prince was moving step by step, and Anil and Kamal were hoping. Hope is a word, and its meaning is jump or bounce. So at that time, Anil and Kamal both were jumping. Nobody was paying any attention to Maharani, who was looking suspiciously at the other beetles in the rear. Suspiciously meaning is doubtfully. It is an adverb. Even at that time, Maharani was very doubtful. No doubt, she suspected them of having something to do with the disappearance of her apple. She was still very doubtful where her apple core is. I begged her to make an effort. At that time, the narrator was begging her, the narrator was requesting her. Beg means to request. It is a verb. So at that time, narrator was requesting her to do some effort. It was with difficulty that I prevented myself from giving her a push, but that would have meant disqualification. At that time, narrator wanted to give Maharani a push so that she can move further, but he knew this thing that it would be a disqualification. As Black Prince drew level with Mucha, he stopped and appeared to be inquiring about his rival's whiskers. As Black Prince had moved further, he stopped and he was checking about his rival's whiskers, Mucha whiskers. Anil and Kamal now became even more frantic in their efforts to encourage their racers. At that time, Anil and Kamal became more frantic. Frantic means uncontrolled. It is an adjective. And cheering on all sides was deafening. Deafening means very loud. So at that time, Kamal and Anil was uncontrolled. They were cheering their racers as much as they could, and they were cheering them loudly. Maharani, enraged at having been deprived of her apple core, now decided to make a bid for liberty and rushed forward in great style. Now, Maharani, enraged means she got very angry. It is an adjective. And now Maharani decided that she would make a bid for liberty. Bid for liberty is a phrase. It is a phrase and its meaning is attempt for freedom. Now she decided that she would also attempt for her freedom. She would also take interest in the race. So she rushed forward. I gave a cry of joy. At that time the narrator cried loudly. But the others didn't notice this new challenge until Maharani had drawn level with her rivals. But the Anil and Kamal, they all were very busy in cheering the other beaters, so they didn't notice that Maharani is now taking interest in the race. There was a gasp of surprise from the spectators, and Maharani dashed across the finishing line in record time. Now, all the spectators, all the viewers were observing Maharani with a great surprise, and Maharani had completed the race in the given time. Everyone cheered the gallant outsider. Now, what is the meaning of gallant? Gallant is brave, or you can say heroic. So everyone had cheered Maharani. Anil and Kamal very sportingly shook my hand and congratulated me on my methods. Now Anil and Kamal had congratulated the narrator for his success. Coins and marbles passed from hand to hand. The little sick boy blew his whistle for silence and presented me with the first prize. At that time, the little sick boy blew his whistle so that everyone could silence, and he presented the narrator his first prize. I examined the new beetle with respect and gently stroked its hard, smooth back. After getting the prize, the narrator checked the beetle. Then, in case Maharani should feel jealous, I put away the prize beetle and returned Maharani to her apple hole. At that time, narrator thought that maybe Maharani could feel jealous. So he put the new beetle at one side and he kept Maharani inside her apple hole. I was determined that I would not indulge in any favoritism. At that time, narrator was very much determined. Narrator was very much sure that he would not do any type of favoritism. Students, this story is written by Ruskin Bond, and this is all about the explanation of this chapter. Thank you so much.